I'm here with a good friend of mine, Tim Delp, and today we're going to be talking about investing in opportunity zones. Tim had a few questions, so I thought we would record our call, stream it live, and so you all can listen in and hopefully get something out of it. But before we get started, if you have any questions that are a little bit deeper than what we go into today, you can get more information by going to jwbwebclass.com, and you're going to really enjoy this live training I've put on right there. It goes in depth into opportunity zones, investing in rental properties, all things you need to know. So you will want to go there. But without further ado, Tim, welcome. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well. Thank you for your time and appreciate the information.
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about kind of how far back we go? Because this is not just a one-time phone call. We've been working together for how many, like over a decade now, pretty much, I bet, right?
Yeah, we go back at least that long. I did a little stint working there at JWB, and whenever
the good old days,
the early days of starting the turnkey investment rentals, and I owned rental properties, so that was what kind of drew me there at the time, and just have stayed in touch.
So what was it like? So what was it like back in the day working at JWB? Because you came way back when we were in our office on University. I mean, there were probably maybe 15, 20 people working for JWB at that time, maybe?
Probably, yeah, around there. That sounds about right.
All right. What's the most interesting thing you remember about being a part of JWB back in the day, in its infancy?
I would say what I see now and what I saw then as a part of it was you all have always wanted to have a unique culture, that while you're investing in real estate, I think very early on, you all put a lot of emphasis on that, and that's probably been a large part of the success, that it's not really just about real estate. That just happens to be the business that you're in. And I've just continued to see that emphasis that you've placed.
And you've gone on to have an extremely successful investing career. So you're a current JWB client right now. You did some private lending with us. You were just telling me that you've sold us a few houses as well, so that we've been able to either buy those lots or buy those houses, turn them into cash flowing rental properties. And we're just good friends too. So It's been a nice journey, my friend. So how can I help you today? What can I help you out with?
So I reached out. I've recently sold a property I bought in 2014. I had paid $45,000 for it and sold it where I've got about a $70,000 capital gain. I did choose not to do a 1031 exchange, just thinking I'll pay the taxes. But I am now considering the opportunity zone in terms of, obviously it gives me similar benefits to if I had done a 1031 exchange, but it has the added benefit from what we've exchanged emails on in regards to whatever I do buy, as long as I keep it for 10 years, then the gain on the new property is tax-free. So that is
Absolutely
appealing to me in terms of, obviously, as I sold this investment, I'm going to invest it in something else, whether it be another property eventually or do more of the lending that I'm doing more and more of.
Absolutely. All right. So where should we start first? Do you have questions specifically about the opportunity zone, or is it about lending versus investing in the opportunity zone? How can I help the best?
I think my primary question, because I know you've asked or answered some of them through the other dialogue, is in terms of everything references that you have to set up a fund or you have to set up an entity. The properties I do own right now, I hold in my own name, so I've never set up an entity, as well as establishing an entity kind of changes the ability to add leverage to it, or a little bit different than getting a traditional residential mortgage. So trying to get a little bit more insight in terms of, do I just set up an LLC and then purchase in the LLC, and then that suffices, and then some guidance in terms of the financing side. I'm in residential lending, but I've never, done a whole lot of lending, but I know that market has expanded a lot, where 10 years
Yeah.
ago, you didn't have any options, but now there's a lot more banks that are open to what would be considered a commercial loan on a single family home.
Yep. Okay. So let's for those that are watching that may not understand what opportunity zones are, let me just go over the 3 amazing tax incentives that opportunity zones give you, which is why Tim is thinking about doing this. Then we'll talk specifically about what it takes to set up this thing called an opportunity zone fund. And then we'll talk about how do you get financing in that opportunity zone fund. Is that pretty much what we need to cover? Okay. All right, cool. So the opportunity zone is an incredible tax savings opportunity. It is something that I've never seen before as far as tax savings when it comes to owning rental properties long term. So what Tim was referencing, what you were talking about really is, what you could do before this, which is a 1031 exchange. And a 1031 exchange basically means that, just like Tim has a property here that he bought, I believe in 2014 for $45,000. He's selling it. He just sold it now. And I think he realized a $70,000 gain, if I remember correctly. Right.
Correct.
So in a 1031 exchange, Tim would basically have to take that rental property and then buy a new rental property. And Tim would have had to basically set that up prior to selling the previous property. So as of right now, Tim, if you haven't set that up yet, then the 1031 exchange isn't a possibility. But what that would do for Tim, if he did the 1031 exchange, is that would allow him to defer paying the taxes on that gain. So that $70,000 of income was taxable, and that, Tim would have been taxed on it, if he doesn't do something with it now, right? So because you do have to send a 1031 exchange up before you close on the previous property, that's no longer an option. So now the option that Tim's considering is this opportunity zone, because with an opportunity zone, you don't have to set it up previous to closing. What you have to do is put the money into an opportunity zone fund within 180 days after you close. So this is still an opportunity for Tim. And now let's talk about what it does for you. So a 1031 just allows you to defer taxes. What an opportunity zone fund allows you to do is to basically get that benefit. So you're able to defer taxes until the year 2026. But what it also does is it allows you to step up your basis at 2026 by either 10 or 15%. There's a few rules that we're not going to go into right now, but just assume it's 15%. So that $70,000 gain that Tim had, now that drops by 15%, and then he gets taxed on whatever 70,000 times 85% is, right? Then that's that taxable income that he has to pay at the end of 2026. So comparing this to doing nothing, Tim is now going to save whatever the savings is of that 15% step up in his basis, which is significant, right? But the really big thing, the thing that's just amazing about opportunity zones is what Tim was talking about, which is after 10 years, if you hold on to this property for 10 years, this new property that Tim's going to buy, the gains on the appreciation are not taxable at any point in the future. So Tim holds on to that thing for 11 years and it goes up $1 million in value, just for an example's sake, right? He's not going to pay gains. No, he's not going to pay taxes on that additional $1 million of appreciation that would happen, right? So it's a really amazing tax savings opportunity for those who are buying rental properties, interested in buying rental properties, interested in tax savings, and not only in rental, not only did they sell a rental property previously, but they could have sold their stocks. They could have sold a business. This can all be now going into opportunity zones. So that's the really cool part. But you know all that, right?
Yeah, that's what we've kind of gone back and forth a little bit off camera on.
There you go. There you go. So that's why people should be paying attention to this. So now, what does it take to actually create an opportunity zone fund? It's not as intimidating as it may seem. So I'll tell you what we have done personally. JWB is not going to set up this opportunity zone fund for you. You've got to go to a legal professional who's going to set it up for you. So what we do is we can connect you with the legal team that we use to set our own up. And we've talked with them. We've made sure that the rates for setting this up are not exorbitant. So think in the, I don't know exactly what it is, but it's less than $10,000, right? It's in the single thousands, right? It's not gonna break the bank. But what that means is that if you're gonna do this, you should be thinking about doing it for more than probably one property, right? It should be more of a bigger approach. So it may not make sense unless you're planning on holding on long term, and unless you have a significant amount of capital, because you are going to get eaten up in some cost of setting up the entity. But as far as the ease of it, it's just a connection that we would make with the attorney that we use. They've got all the docs, all the forms, and they'll be able to walk you through all of that. So that wouldn't be something that you should be scared about. I would say the bigger question is, how big do you want to go into this? Because if we think about what the tax savings are on that one property, it may not be worth it unless you're planning on holding on for a lot longer than 10 years. If you're holding on for a really long time, it still probably makes sense for one property, right? Yeah. If you're only going to hold on for 9 years, it probably doesn't make sense for you, right? Because you're going to eaten up in the legal fees. But if you have multiple properties and you can experience the appreciation on multiple properties, and you're only holding on for 10 years or 12 years or 13 years, it still probably makes sense to do it at that point. You know what I mean? So
that makes sense.
And then,
yeah.
What were you thinking? Are you thinking about going bigger? Is this sort of a one-time thing for you?
Well, that kind of provides some clarification in terms of where I agree with you in terms of if you're doing one property, in terms of, the taxes on what I have here, it might be, let's say, around number $15,000 that I'm going to pay. So you look at, do I just pay the taxes, or do I don't know, if it's $5,000 or $6,000 to set it up, it may or may not make sense to avoid the taxes, but it still makes sense to avoid the taxes if I am going to invest in something else and I'm planning to do it in an opportunity zone. Obviously, it limits you where you can invest in terms of, if I was looking at something different that's not in an opportunity zone, then that wouldn't be advantageous. But it allows me to go back to the drawing board and kind of make the decision on if I'm going to do it. And then I think if I'm going to do it, it probably is a matter of saying it might make sense to allocate more capital to it. I guess the other thing I've even thought about is, the property I sold it's probably in an opportunity zone currently. But obviously if I held on to that, it wouldn't apply. It's almost like you can, I could choose to cycle through the other properties I own and replace them with properties in the same area. And so 10 years from now, the new properties would be capital gain free, as opposed to holding on to the ones I have. I'm still going to pay capital gains if I eventually ever sell them. So that's kind of a thought process as well. Yeah. Do you sell and replace what you have so that you're getting the tax benefit?
If you're going to be holding on to those properties for over 10 years, it seems to me as if it would be a no-brainer to replace, right? Because it's the same type of asset in the same neighborhood. You're comfortable being there. But if you're planning on holding for over 10 years, the choice is, spend a few $1,000s in, legal fees getting it set up and save on the taxes on all of your appreciation for your entire portfolio forever after 10 years. I mean, that's a huge opportunity for you. So I think it's a great strategy just to replace, stay in your same neighborhoods. And in Jacksonville, where we are, I'm sure it's the same places that you are, right? It's these, great cash flowing rental neighborhoods. So you probably don't even have to kind of stray too far out of where you already are in order to accomplish the specific type of asset that you need.
Yeah. So I've got to kind of, you probably know me, I'm kind of an analytical. So this gives me a little bit more to go back to the Excel spreadsheets and try to decide, do I want to start going through that process of kind of repositioning basically what I own into new properties that would qualify under the opportunity zone. And then if I do that, obviously it makes sense to incur the cost up front.
So the next challenge you're going to run into, though, is the type of asset, right? Because I'm assuming you're buying fixer-uppers and renovating them and turning them into rental properties to hold on to, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So are you familiar with the rules as far as how much you need to improve it for renovation?
I think it's 50%.
Yeah. So, you buy a house for $50,000, you have to put $25,000 worth of work into it. in order for it to qualify.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. New construction works really well. So, you know, you don't build any new construction,
No.
do you?
No.
No. Okay. Do you know anybody who does?
I've heard of this company, this guy with two thumbs. Yeah.
Yeah. So new construction will work really well.
And so I guess even though I'm the one, I would be buying the new construction, it suffices because it's been built in the last year or some aspect like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It passes that threshold, that 50% improvement threshold is passed because of the building of the property. Obviously, that's more than 50% of the acquisition cost. And so when the previous seller builds the house or the builder builds the house, like JWB would be the builder there, and we sell it to our clients, they're able to invest in it and they don't have to then improve the house 50% more. Like, it'd be impossible to do that for a new construction house. So, so you remove that hurdle for new construction.
Okay. Yeah. And I get that makes sense. And that's a good clarifying point because I wasn't sure, you know, in terms of if I'm in theory not making any of the improvements, if that would still, you know, meet the requirements.
Yep. For most people out there, opportunity zones, like for us, it's something that we think about, our clients think about it. It's like very possible. It's very attainable, right? Even, you know, for you, your whole strategy is buying great properties in cash flowing neighborhoods, places that you're comfortable in a growth city like Jacksonville. And you don't have to stray from that in order to invest in opportunity zones. But for most places out there, these opportunity zones are not in those normal, great cash flowing neighborhoods. For most places out there, they don't have the ability or the opportunity to build new construction. And so it's really hard to source that type of inventory for most people out there. We're just blessed being in Jacksonville. Our opportunity zones happen to be in neighborhoods that we already know and love. And then, you know, there are fixer-upper opportunities, but it's a little more challenging. That's, you know, the new construction angle works really well there too. So yeah, we're pretty blessed.
What about from a lending standpoint, given that this is going to be in a corporation, what are your buyers who are looking to have leverage doing?
You know, it's you're going to pay a little bit more. So there's a lot more lending options than when we used to work together. Yeah, I mean, we used to just flat out tell clients, no, you can't get financing in a company name, right? It's because that's the way it was, you know, whenever it was 6, 7, 8 years ago, whenever we were working together. Now there's more options. It's just going to be a little bit more expensive, you know? So I think, you know, while you may get, you know, a 5 or a 5.25% rate on an investment property or, you know, in your personal name, it might be closer to 7%, you know, with some of the options. But we do have lenders that will lend to a company and, you know, you can still make the numbers work depending on how good your acquisition cost is. Still make the numbers work. It'll be at least cash flow, you know, break even. So, you know, you're going to lose a little bit of the cash flow because of the rules of it has to be in an opportunity zone and therefore your financing is going to cost a little bit more. But when you factor that in, it's just a cost of doing this compared to the benefits 10 years plus, still probably makes sense, especially if you're thinking about doing it for multiple properties or you have a significant gain that you're going to be, you know, avoiding the taxes on. So, but yeah, it's going to be a little bit more expensive. So,
okay,
but still possible.
That
good stuff, my friend.
Yeah, that hits on most of the stuff because you know, from your previous videos and posts, I'd kind of gotten how the initial part works, but I just wasn't sure about the setting up of the entity and then as well, you know, kind of what the financing side might look like.
Okay. Well, I mean, how can I help? Do you want me to introduce you to, you're going to need a CPA who knows what they're talking about, and you're going to need a lawyer who knows what they're talking about. So I'm happy to make that introduction for you.
Yeah.
You don't have to use
it so I can get a little bit more of that information and then, yeah, I closed within the last couple of weeks, so I've still got a little bit of time, but I know I can't, you know, drag it out forever if I'm going to want to, you know, roll these gains essentially into the opportunity zone.
Yeah, just be aware it's 180 days is when you got to put the funds in. So another question is I get a lot is, well, you put the funds in, do you have to have the house renovated within 180 days? The answer is no. There's more time that they give you in order to complete the renovation. It's a whole lot of statutes, and I'm sure the lawyer will go over that with you to set it up.
Okay.
So, but the most important thing for you is probably over the next, couple of months, if you're going to do it, start that process, get it going, so you get your ducks in a row, so you're not, missing out on that 180-day timeline.
Okay. That all is very helpful.
You got it, my friend. Let me know how I can help. Okay.
Okay. Yep. I appreciate it. I'll watch for the contact information.
All right. I'll send it over to you, buddy. See you, man.
Thank you, Greg.